So I have a lawnmower, and in order to use the lawnmower, I have to constantly put air in at least 2 of the tires because they go flat. And so I'm not sure if you're anything like me, but if your time is tight and you're busy, you know when it's time to cut the grass, you want to get right to it. The worst thing is to have to grab the pump and want to pump up the tires. So I got this handy dandy Fix-A-Flat. Have you ever seen this? Yeah. So at the beginning of the season, I put the Fix-A-Flat in the lawnmower tires, and for the most part, all year, we haven't had to add too much air to the tires. But those tires kind of remind me of the way life is. We got a slow leak all the time. And no matter what, because we're human, we are going to experience loss. We are going to be injured. It is just part of the process. And so we steel ourselves and anticipate that part of life is struggle. And how then do we handle struggle? In a hospital, we identify in 2 situations ways that someone may want to handle struggle. In one situation, we declare what type of code is there going to be for a patient. A code is predetermined with a patient, and it decides to what extent is life-saving measures going to be offered to you when you are hospitalized. Codes can vary from full code, everything involved, meaning drugs, CPR, artificial breathing, artificial circulatory assistance. That is a full code. In some cases, people say, give me every single thing possible to save my life. The other situation we declare in a hospital with someone as they are a patient is called an advance directive. An advance directive differs from a code in that an advance directive discusses with someone you love as a patient what is to be done if you are no longer able to make medical decisions for yourself, under what circumstances. This simply translated means, do you want to live on life support? Do you want to permanently be hooked up to a respiratory machine and have a feeding peg placed in? This is an advance directive. They're 2 different things. One of these is declared before any incident occurs, and the other is to be used in case you no longer can advocate for yourself. And there are degrees of each one. The bottom line is one thing is used to make the decision almost exclusively, and that has to do with quality of life. What is the quality of your life before you become ill is often what people look at when they determine codes. What will be the quality of your life after an illness, if all measure is given to you, is often what is looked at with regards to advance directives. What is the quality of our spiritual life? Where does it begin, and how does it include healing and suffering? Given the idea that we cannot get away from the fact that we are sinful by nature, so we will have those spiritual issues we need to be healed from no matter what. But what goes along with it is physical illness, mental, psychological, and all other types of illness. We would do well if spiritually we declare what type of code we are, what we are willing to do or have done to us for healing and spiritual health, as well as advance directive. What do the people around us know about us, and what are we asking them to do for us if we can no longer do it for ourselves? This is critical in regards to our faith and the way we live our faith. Today, in two families coming forward for baptism, we are both declaring a code and an advance directive. The code is that we are coming to the waters of baptism. These babies are coming to be washed and adopted as a child of God. And this is the healing of forgiveness of sin. This is the healing of the adoption to say, you are in my family. You are one of my own. But there is also an advance directive that goes along with baptism. And today, it is the parents and the godparents, as well as the church, that acknowledges we are responsible for the advance directive. That means we are the spiritual caregivers to do all things for the babies until they get old enough to nurture their own lives spiritually. It is the ultimate healing we seek, baptism. And then from baptism, life happens. And the tires begin to leak. And it is up to us to figure out, how do we add air? How do we fix the flats to keep going on? In our stories today, there are two stories about healing. And in each story, there are barriers to healing, and then there is the grace involved with healing. As it pertains to our life, yours and mine, we seek healing in many regards of situations we do not understand or do not control. We seek physical healing, mental, social, and spiritual healing. In the first story, we find some barriers to healing that exist, first of all, with a young girl who was captured in a war and is now a prisoner. This girl is a prisoner in another country, and she knows of the prophet Elijah. She knows of the power of Yahweh. And as she is imprisoned and captured in another culture, taken away from where she wants to be, the culture she wants to live in, and all of the things, she is forced with being captured and isolated and put in a place she does not want to be. We experience being put in places we do not ask for or we do not want to be. Just like this woman captured in a war and taken off against her will. Another barrier in this story of healing is Naaman, the great warrior. Naaman hears about this prophet called Elijah. He hears about the possibility of being healed of leprosy. And so Naaman goes with a note to the king and gifts, and he shows up to the king, and the king's like, I can't help you. The prophet Elijah decides, well, I'll help him, send him my way. So he goes to see the prophet Elijah. And this great warrior Naaman hears a message from Elijah. Elisha does not even get out of his house to go to speak with him. He simply sends a messenger. And now Naaman is faced with a great challenge. You see, this is not how Naaman expected to be healed. In his mind, he has an idea of the way healing looks. He knows how it should happen. And in his mind, it is not happening the way he believes it should. He wants to know, where's the pomp? Where's the circumstance? Where's the great thing that is going to be done around me or to me? The only thing that has happened is he sends someone to tell me to do something. The barrier to healing is that the healing is not coming the way Naaman expected it. In the gospel of Jesus, there is a barrier to healing, and that is there is a complete community of people living in the middle. They are all lepers. They have been told they must live together. They are not allowed to live in either one of the towns Jesus is in the middle of. You see, because they are lepers, they have been thrown out. They are no longer good to be with the community. They are infected. They are dangerous. They cannot be with others. And so this community of people bind together, but they have no home. They are in between. They have no one else to lean on but themselves, and so they feel isolated between one city and another. And we too experience a similar barrier when we are between one thing and another. When we too hang around with other people who may be wounded or need healing. Barriers to healing are very real. Ultimately, it is up to us to understand that even if we are captured and in a place we do not want to be, we can still be a part of healing, because this young girl is the very one who proclaims the possibility of healing for Naaman. And so even in her own capture, she speaks of faith. She speaks of healing. And so in her own pain and isolation, she brings healing by the truth and faith she says. In the case of Naaman, healing comes because it is just as simple as the prophet tells him. Go down to the river and wash. Stop having your own personal expectations of what healing means. Sometimes the greatest truth is in a simple answer. And Naaman learns this as his son says to him, look, if he would have told you to do all these difficult things and great trials to get there, wouldn't you have done that? And so why don't you just do this simple thing? And he does, and he's healed. I wish I could tell you I have the answer to healing in the simplicity, but the longer I live, the more I understand there are just things that we have to learn to accept that we do not have answers to accept that we do not have control over. And when we first learn that acceptance leads to peace, we are able to seek acceptance in many painful things. I know healing oftentimes does not come in the way that we wish or we want, but the simplicity of it is acceptance that we are not God and we do not understand everything is the key to keeping faith and seeking peace in our lives. Finally, in the last story, the barrier is overcome to healing as this community stuck in between is approached by Jesus. Jesus comes by and they cry out to Jesus. And this is still a mechanism of healing for all of us today. Faith still passes by us when we are isolated. Faith still comes out of communities we are not a part of and we may not understand. And as faith comes by in many different forms, prayers of others, love of others, concern of others, or even a conversation with God direct or Jesus himself, healing is still available. Even in this story, 9 of the 10 who were healed never come back to express gratitude. And Jesus questions it. But he does point out when the one who is healed comes back, who is a foreigner, who is isolated, who is not a Jew. That's why they say Samaritan. When the one comes back, there's a switch. And I don't know if you caught the switch in the reading. But Jesus says, we're not 10 made. And what the word he used was what? Do you remember? Probably not. Clean. He said, we're not 10 of you made clean. And when the one comes back, what does he say? He says, your faith has made you well. There's a difference between being clean and well, and that difference has to do with gratitude. I know that we are surrounded by people in our lives and outside of our lives. We are surrounded by a culture in a world that can be difficult to live in. And the bottom line is acceptance that we are not God. We cannot explain everything, but healing still exists. We have a slow leak. And as the tires go down, we have to keep adding air through prayer, through communion, confession and forgiveness, the waters of baptism. I wish I could tell you it will all be easier and it will all get better. I cannot. The only thing I can say is that we have a choice to work on things we control in life and just hope that it gets better. But even if it doesn't seem to be better, we heal. We heal by the power of the Holy Spirit and the love of others. I carry this coin now again. Which represents a year free from drugs and alcohol. After I started carrying this coin again, I kept waiting. When does it get easier? When does it get better? And it doesn't. The only thing I have control over is how I handle my problems. But as I spiritually heal and I physically overcome things that I have done, what God shows me is that you need more healing. The closer I become to God, the clearer He illustrates the brokenness in my life. And the more I heal and the closer I get to God, the more painful it is every single time to see that there is still brokenness. And I wonder, where is the healing? I thought I was done and over that, and God says, no, it is a process. You got a slow leak, Rob. That leak needs air. And sometimes the tire goes flat, and that is healing. We are encouraged to accept that God is the one who knows all things. Even in baptism, it is a temporary healing. Although we are adopted as a child of God, we know that the ultimate healing is in the end of times, when Jesus comes again to reclaim all of creation. But until then, we focus on Band-Aids. The Band-Aids of the prayers you have placed on the altar. Baptism, which is a tremendous adoption and piece of healing. But ultimately, we know we live in a broken world and that we will always have to seek healing. Healing when we do not understand, healing when we do. Acceptance and living into peace is the one great act of faith that assists with God's healing. Wherever you are today, whatever healing you need and whatever healing you seek for your family, community, and world, know that it is possible and it happens. It is always done in God's time. And as that time passes, I pray you have the faith to make the next right choice today to demonstrate that you are a faithful believer in God's ultimate power. Amen. I invite you to